thought I'd read to you tonight from Ghostlight. Chapter 1. Rebecca Strand was 16 the first time she saw her father kill a ghost. She was woken by a hand on her shoulder and opened her eyes to Papa's face flickering in the glow of his lantern. He held out her shawl and said, "Get up. I need your help." Her first thought was, "At last!" Immediately, she leapt from the warmth of her bed and listened for the weather. No rain lashed against the window, no wind howled. She fastened the woolen shawl around her nightdress. "Is a ship in trouble?" she asked. "We need to hurry." She followed him downstairs and outside. In the calm sky glowed a moon and stars sharp as gemstones. Not even a hint of mist hovered over the lake. It was hard to imagine a ship foundering on such a night. Still, boats ran aground on the island's sandy shoals all the time. Jutting from its beaches were the broken ribs of old, wrecked hulls. Many times, over the years, her parents had helped drag survivors ashore and into the shelter of their home. But her mother had died of fever 2 years ago, and last month, her older brother Bernard had ventured off to Kingston to apprentice as a stonemason. It was just her and her father now. So maybe, finally, she'd have a chance to prove herself. But as her eyes swept the smooth water, she saw nothing amiss. Her father headed straight for the lighthouse. For a second, she wondered if something was wrong with the lamp itself. Had it gone out? But then the beam swung around, cutting its white path through the night. "Papa, what's wrong?" At the huge red door of the lighthouse, he turned the iron clasp and entered. Stepping inside, Rebecca shivered. Even though it was summer, the cold radiated from the thick stone. Her father was already vaulting up the spiral steps, and she hurried after him. The hot, thrilling whiff of lamp oil hit her as she climbed up inside the lamp room. Atop its stout iron column, the blazing beacon turned, sending its beam through the high windows. The Gibraltar Point Lighthouse was the tallest of all the lake lights, rising from the western point of the island that sheltered Toronto's harbour. Across the water were the glimmering lights of the city, home now to almost 30,000 souls. Her father hung his lantern from a hook and immediately took up his spyglass. He opened the door and ducked outside onto the narrow catwalk. Rebecca followed. "I had a warning from the Niagara Light," Papa said, scanning the water to the south. Rebecca looked across the vast sweep of Lake Ontario. From this height, you might sometimes see the spray rising from the falls. And on clear nights like this, you could often catch the pale flicker of the Niagara Light on the American shore. What kind of warning? She hadn't heard of lighthouses signaling one another, but this was exactly the sort of thing she'd been hoping Papa would teach her one day. Now, maybe with Bernard gone. "Something's coming," her father said. Her skin prickled. The way Papa said it, she knew he didn't mean bad weather. Her father lowered his spyglass and turned to her. He was a solemn man by nature, but she'd never known him to look so grave. "Tonight must be the night you learn." Joy instantly overwhelmed any nervousness. "I'm ready, Papa. I want to know everything." She'd been born on this sandy crescent of an island, and her whole life her father had been keeper of the Gibraltar Point Light. Even though she'd never been permitted to help, that privilege had always gone to her brother Bernard, she was sometimes allowed to watch them tend the lamp. She knew how to replenish the whale oil and trim the wick. She understood the ingenious pulleys and gears that made the beacon revolve. The lighthouse itself felt like a vital gear in her own life. Just as the sun rose each morning, each night the lighthouse beam swept across her curtained window. Every 2 minutes, it was as fine a lullaby any guardian could give a child. For as long as she could remember, she'd wanted to be a keeper. "You may not thank me," Papa said, "for the things I'm going to tell you." On the catwalk, she had a powerful premonition that her life was about to change forever. "You know that I tend the light to warn ships away from the shoals," her father said, "to guide them into safe harbor. But there's more." Abruptly, as if he'd heard something, he turned. Following the beacon's beam, he lifted his spyglass to his eye. He did not hold the rail to steady himself, but stood with his legs wide like a sailor balanced on the prow of a ship awaiting a storm, or worse. "What do you see?" Rebecca demanded. "Quicker than I thought," he muttered. He held the spyglass out to Rebecca. "Look." Her hands shook as she brought it to her eye. "Do you see?" he asked. All she beheld was silvered water glinting in the moonlight. Then the lighthouse beam picked out something bobbing on the surface. At first, Rebecca thought it was a piece of timber washed out from the mill. Then her stomach clenched. A body! Then the lighthouse beam had passed, and she saw only dark water. Where did it go? She shifted the spyglass to and fro with no luck. Wait for the light to return, said her father. When the beam swept past, once more the body reappeared. It was face down in the water, a sodden blouse, long weed-matted hair, an arm weakly churned the water. She's alive, Rebecca cried, looking away from the spyglass. Her father had already rushed back inside the lamp room. She hurried after him. Papa, we need to get the boat. She didn't understand. Why wasn't he sounding the alarm or bolting to the beach? The poor woman had obviously been washed overboard, or her ship had foundered. Papa? From around his neck, he slipped off the tarnished lighthouse pendant he always wore. He inserted it like a key into the sturdy iron column that supported the lamp. Rebecca heard the sound of metal pieces clicking into place. Suddenly, the lamp stopped revolving. From the sides of the column, 2 iron handles shot out with a clang. Gripping them, Papa swiveled the beacon, directing the beam as he wished. I never knew you could do that, Rebecca exclaimed. Go outside. Find her, her father instructed. Bewildered, Rebecca returned to the catwalk. Lifting the spyglass, she found the woman. Maybe Papa wanted to focus more light on her before the rescue. Both the woman's arms were paddling feebly, though her face was still submerged. Is the light bright upon her? Papa called from the lamp room. Yes, but she's so weak. Watch now. The woman lifted her head clear of the water and revealed her face. All the breath rushed out of Rebecca's body. It was like no face she'd ever beheld. The terrible eyes filled with such malice. The light was bright on the woman's face, and her eyes shut tight, and her tattered hands lifted as if warding off an attack. Holes began to open in the flesh. The light's killing her, Rebecca said. She's already dead, her father replied. As it disintegrated, the body sank. Rebecca sucked air back into her lungs, then turned to her father, who'd come outside to stand with her. What was that? A ghost. He said it like any other word. A chair, a cat, a house. She caught herself shaking her head no, but her brain could think of no other reasonable explanation for what she'd just seen, or hadn't seen. I couldn't see it at first, she said, remembering. Not until the beam passed over it. Yes, Papa said, the brightness of our light reveals ghosts. She stared at the beacon in astonishment. All her life she'd thought it was just a simple lamp. A powerful one, yes, but that was all. And it melts them? She asked. Sends them where they're meant to be it heaven or hell, said her father. Rebecca touched her hand to her chest. It made me feel like I couldn't breathe. Some are terrifying to behold. It's part of their power. Questions pelted Rebecca's brain. Through her bewilderment, she felt a sting of indignation. Mother always said there were no ghosts. You did too. I lied, Papa said, taking the spyglass and scanning the bay to keep the secret of our order. Order? Rebecca said. We don't have time. He handed back the spyglass and returned to the lamp room. She's not the only one who will be coming tonight.